Good morning, friends and fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the Morning Market Prep video for January 10th, 2024. Well, yesterday we had kind of an interesting choppy day, kind of as expected, and that's just that wait that we're waiting for that CPI number, that uncertainty, and of course, the beginning of earnings season with the big bank report starting on Friday. Let's take a look at what happened overnight. Well, first off, we had Asian markets closing mostly lower. Only the Nikkei was up, and it was up strongly, up over 2%, blowing past 34,000, which the Nikkei has not seen since March of 1990. So if you've ever needed a reference for party like it's 1990, take a look at the Nikkei. You might have to go to Japan. If we take a look at everything else, actually the CSI 300, which is a market cap weighted index, if you don't know, a market cap weighted index, it's kind of like China's S&P 500. It ended up closing at nearly a 5-year low. So quite a change going on over there in Asian markets. If we take a look at European markets this morning, they are mostly lower. At the moment here, very early this morning, it's like 5:30 a.m. this morning as I'm recording this. Only the DAX is holding a very modest gain of 5 points. So we're down across the board, but they are relatively modest moves at the moment. And looking at U.S. markets, we're trying to continue to push the NASDAQ higher with a good pop here this morning in the pre-market showing on the NASDAQ, S&P just modestly higher, and the Dow looking just a little bit negative this morning. If we take a look at oil this morning, we had a major attack over there in the Red Sea. Involving 4 ships. It's the largest attack so far. And surprisingly, oil is staying pretty flat here. Oil and Brent are really flat. Natural gas, that had a really big day yesterday, is looking lower this morning. And then taking a look at bonds. Bonds are ticking just a little bit lower this morning as we head in on that inflation report coming up Thursday morning before the bell. So what does all that mean for today? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the hump day, the Wednesday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I do very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at these charts and see if we can gain a little information about how we might want to approach the market for today. Well, first off, let's taking a look here. As you can see, we've had quite the choppy consolidating range here in the diamonds with really big point moves. But the good news is, if you're a bull, we're holding in there just perfectly fine. We're not breaking down at all. I was a little concerned at one point yesterday that we might break the low of this candle here, that big pop on Monday. But no, we held in there, holding in here on this price support, just choppy range bound, what it looks like, and it is what it is. The market is waiting on something, and clearly what we're waiting on is that data from the CPI. So if the bulls can maintain any kind of bullishness or inspiration here, let's look for a breakout up here. If they can push on through here, remember we've got blue sky above, which means anything is possible above that area. If the bears were to find some inspiration today, then let's look for that opportunity that we could maybe push down and to test this area of support. And of course, if that were to break, then maybe coming on back to test the all-time high breakout here in the diamonds as a price support. So watch those levels in the chart. If we take a look at our SPY, also trying to move up yesterday, but well, just kind of being a bit range bound. We've been a bit stuck here after quite the push on Monday in big tech, and then they just kind of rested since then. But if you'll take a look right in here, SPY, that would be the resistance to break today. Certainly a possibility that could be the case, and if we break in here, I think we retest these past highs here in the chart, and then maybe even take a run to test for a breakout to all-time highs in the SPY. And boy, they've got to have those big tech giants moving to get that done, and they are working really hard to try and get that done in the tech giants, even though the majority of the NASDAQ just really isn't seeing all that much love. If we were to take a look here at the bears, if the bears were to find something to be active on, then maybe a pushback down to test this breakout area here in the chart. This goes back to 2021 and 2022. There's multiple tops right in there. So maybe a test of that area as support. Now that'd be a fairly big point move. Might be a little bit painful pushing down into there. And if that were to break, well, then you'll notice we might be even coming back into an area like this to test support, which would probably be a little bit of a shock for the market, and that would create a possible lower high. So let's keep a close eye on that. Our QQQ, this is where the push is this morning. They're trying to gap this again, pushing it back up. As you can see, QQQ trying to push back up here toward this little resistance high. If you can see, pull that all the way back. That's that all-time high breakout here in the NASDAQ. They want to try and reach back up and reclaim that. So keep a close eye on that. That would be that the goal there would be to break that resistance, and then of course if we can break there, move right on up and see if we can make brand new highs in the QQQ. If the bears, however, were to find inspiration today, well, if you look in here, we've got just a little bit of price support. You can see that right across here in the chart, and that's not much. If the bears were to really come in and do something, breaking down through that area doesn't seem like too tough of a prospect. If the bears were to wake up and do something, maybe push back here to test the lows of that big black candle, possible. We could watch for that, and if those areas were to fail, I'm going to suggest maybe coming down here where we can find this little bottoming area here in the chart. Now, unfortunately, if that were to occur, we do run that risk that this could end up being a lower high in the QQQ. So you'll want to keep that in mind here on that chart. And then IWM continuing to struggle with this trend break. You can see we had this downtrend in here that we just sliced right through at the end of the year, pushing up. Since then, we've broken back down. We've given up these shorter term trends. We've been struggling against this resistance here in the chart. So if the bulls were to find inspiration today, we need to see them push up through this area of the chart. And if the bears were to find inspiration today, then I think a push back down, breaking down below these lows, would be what we'd be watching for, and maybe even a test of this trend in IWM. It is entirely possible that we continue to be choppy and consolidate today, just simply because we're waiting on that data, and we don't have a tremendous amount of data to get real active on today, except maybe some geopolitical news. So watch that carefully here in these charts. Let's take a look at our VIX. Now, our VIX pulled back yesterday. Once again, we have no fear at all in this market, continuing to drop this back down here. And if I were to draw a line right up through here, we're trying to break that little upside trend here in the VIX. So we'll want to watch that today. If the bulls continue to find that inspiration, I would expect a retest of this support here in the chart. And if that were to break, then right back down in here, we might be dropping into these lower areas of the VIX. If the bears find some kind of inspiration today and bounce up off of here, that's where we could run into a little bit of concern, and maybe that fear pops back up. And one of the reasons that fear would pop back up is we would run that potential of making lower highs in the S&P 500 and the QQQ if that were the case. So that would raise maybe a little bit of fear. But right now, nobody seems to be worried at all about anything here in the market. Seems to be very, very convinced that the Fed is going to be making 6 rate cuts in the next year, even though none of the Fed members are talking like that. But the market's pretty convinced of itself that it's got it right this time. We'll see. Let's take a look at our T2122. T2122 is the 4-week new high, new low ratio, and you can see what happened yesterday. We ended up whipsawing. A lot of the gains that were made on Tuesday were taken back on Wednesday, and we're right back down here in the mid-range of T2122. Now remember, this doesn't give us any direction as to which way the market's going to go. It just tells us where those pressure points are. So as you can see at this point in time, we've got about an equal shot here in the market today. If the bulls find inspiration, we've got plenty of room up here to move to the upside. If the bears find inspiration, we have an equal amount to move to the downside here. So we'll want to watch that pretty closely today. And remember, there's also that very high probability as we wait for the CPI, we end up just staying stuck here in the market in a choppy light day. So watch carefully for that potential. And then if we take a look at T2108, T2108 percentage of stocks above the 40-day moving average did break down just a little bit yesterday, pushing a little bit lower. We've got more of a topping pattern looking in here, almost a head and shoulders, as you can hear. The right drawing tool, almost a head and shoulders type pattern kind of forming there, but that doesn't mean all that much. With the uncertainty that we see waiting for that inflation data, this could bounce around here quite a bit, I think. So if we were to break on through and push on lower, breaking below some of these little support levels in the chart, then that might be a reason for a bit of concern. But there's every reason to believe the way the market is acting that we could bounce right up off of here with that idea. We just have no fear in the market. If we take a look at our T2107, T2107 is also showing us a bit of a head and shoulders pattern in here, but the good news is it didn't really break this support level in here yesterday like T2108. So we're holding up a little bit stronger here in this chart, albeit still a little bit of a topping pattern in that chart, but there's every reason to believe this could bounce back up and hold in here today. If it does break down, well, don't worry too much. There is some nice support down in here in that chart as well, so kind of keep that in mind. If we take a look at our T2101, now, T2101 continued to show us that breadth decline, and that's not a surprise that breadth is declining. First off, we have the corporate buyback blackouts going on. They're not able to influence their stock shares as we wait on those earnings. And then, of course, we have that situation as well as just the uncertainty of the next couple of days with that CPI, PPI, and the beginning of bank earnings. So just a little bit of uncertainty. So we could continue to see that breadth declining here. If it picks up one way or another on a buy wave or a sell wave, that might be a little bit of concern. But other than that, not a big surprise so far this week that we've been choppy and range bound. If we take a look at our economic calendar for today. Our economic calendar, we got a few things here today, but honestly not enough to probably be all that inspirational here to the market. First off, we're going to kick off with mortgage applications here this morning. Keep an eye on that. Last week they were pretty disappointing. They may be perking up here this week, so that could provide a little bit of bullish inspiration. We've got wholesale inventories here to be paying attention to. We'll want to watch that. We've got petroleum status, of course, with the things going on in the Red Sea. This is going to be pretty important. If we continue to see a build in supplies, that could bring in those bears. If we see those supplies dwindling, that could bring in the bulls. So watch that carefully here in that oil sector. We've got a couple bond auctions to make note of, and then of course we've got Williams out there speaking. So watch carefully for that. Let's take a look at some stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, guys, oh, wait a second. We missed one. We need to take a look at our notable earnings for today. And there is only one notable earning for today. It comes in after the bell, and that would be KBH. So we don't have a lot on the economic calendar to really provide much inspiration. We have very little, nothing that's going to provide us inspiration today on the earnings side of things as we until the end of the day. So not much going on there. Now, that being said, let's get back to this. How about we take a look at some stocks that could be setting up? But before we do that, if y'all could do me a quick favor, and that would be click that subscribe button on YouTube, and then also click the bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And then if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, if you can do me that favor and click that thumbs up button and leave a brief comment, that helps the channel to continue to grow. Thank you so much for everyone who does take the time to do that. I truly appreciate it. It does help out an awful lot, and honestly, you guys humble me every day with your kind support of the channel. Let's take a look at some of these stocks, and remember, guys, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. As a matter of fact, do your own due diligence. Be very careful in this market, just realizing that we got some big data coming our way. Anything is possible. If you've got too many positions long and we happen to get bad data tomorrow, well, that could hurt pretty bad. You could get a lot of stop outs, and vice versa. If you're too short and that data tomorrow happens to be really good, well, you could get a little bit of a painful education of over trading heading into a big data number like that. So be kind of careful with decisions that you make on a trading day like this, where we're just in a hurry up and wait mode. Let's take a look at some of these stocks, and remember, follow your trading rules, your trading guidelines. Never blindly follow anyone else's trade ideas. But I gotta tell you, there was, even though we were kind of monkeying around in here yesterday with a lot of different things, there was a theme that was running through the market here that was pretty darn interesting, and that was the fact that we have a lot of defensive sector companies, consumer defensive sector, showing strength. KHC showing that bullishness yesterday, pushing on through to a new high, pushing on up. You'll notice here in this chart we do have resistance up here to worry about, but KHC looking very good. Stocks like Colgate-Palmolive making a nice move. Didn't quite break out here, but pushing strongly to the upside, maybe shooting for some of these highs up here. Keep an eye on that. Saw stocks all across that sector, like Hershey. Hershey breaking through some resistance in the chart, and this is a break above a 50-day moving average in a pattern that we call the round bottom breakout. Usually a very productive pattern here. My partner Rick Sadler, he's the guy who coined the round bottom breakout, and It's an excellent pattern to learn and understand. But that being said, we have a very, very bullish pattern here on Hershey. If you take a look at Mondelez holding into a nice bullish pattern here, could be setting up for that upside move. I would be keeping an eye on Mondelez Constellation brands showing lots of strength, pushing to the upside. Coca-Cola showing bullishness. Nice little consumer defensive stock showing that opportunity that could push on through to the upside. There are a ton of these looking that way on those old boring companies showing bullishness, and that could be that warning of a rotation that institutions, even though we're seeing big tech push, it might be a situation where institutions, I can't say this for sure, but institutions may be net sellers of those big techs, selling those to retail, willing to chase those markets higher. And at the same time, they're rotating into defensive names. So kind of keep that in mind. You might want to be careful in some of those moves. Now, other places also in more of a defensive area of the market would be utilities. As you can see, utility XLU holding in here strong, and if you jump into the stocks that make up that utilities ETF, there's an awful lot of bullishness showing up in some stocks here in the utility sector. So I would watch that closely for those opportunities that could be setting up there for those potential upside moves if we continue to see that maybe a little bit of concern about what's going on in the market and seeing some of those defensive stocks moving back up. Another place would be in the drug maker area. Take a look at Pfizer. Pfizer's been hated for a long, long time. Boy, just not been happy with Pfizer at all, but you can see Pfizer making this nice productive consolidation in here, pushing up above its 50-day moving average and that rounded bottom breakout. I would just be watching for that next potential bullish pop in here for that move to the upside. If you take a look at Moderna has been running strong here, finding some resistance along its 200-day moving average, but in this chart, still a very productive and bullish consolidation showing up in that chart. I would watch carefully for that next opportunity for that to pop on through to the upside. Merck has had a big run to the upside, big strong move, needs some rest or pullback in here. But as you can see, showing quite a little bit of bullishness overall in that drug area. Let's continue to look here. I've been watching American Tower and was looking for that opportunity that could push on through. It might be starting to fade here, but not so much as to be a real big worry yet. If that can find a bullish push, I would keep an eye maybe on that. How about Johnson Controls? Beautiful chart here. We broke down, crossed back up, trying to hold up here above this support area. I'd be looking for that next opportunity here in JCI. Now, personally, I would prefer we break down, cross back up like this, and then I want to see that rest here just a little bit to give me a lower risk entry to a stop, and then look for that pop on that chart in Johnson Controls. Keep an eye on that. Now, while we're doing that at the same time, there is some stocks that have a little concern out there. When you take a look at Tesla breaking this support here in the chart, that possibility that this could come into a short play here soon. Now, remember, we've got good support here at the moment, so be careful with jumping on that short right away, but I would watch that carefully. If that starts to fade to the downside, maybe some opportunities there, and it would be very, very similar to stocks like Starbucks. Starbucks has been making those moves and consecutively moving lower, and I think there's a pretty good chance that Starbucks could fade right into this area of the chart. So yeah, watch that carefully. A couple other places on the retail side, Walmart showing some bullishness here, trying to break through some resistance. Now we popped through once and then failed, and now we're popping back up again. So once we pop up here again, I want to see that rest or consolidate in here, and then I would look for that opportunity that we might fill this gap here in Walmart. So keep an eye on that. And then I saw Target yesterday also trying to push through some resistance here in the chart, pushing on up. Nice hold of this support area. Target's trying to make that move back to the upside. And when you talk retail, you pretty much got to talk about Costco. Costco, if you look right here, we ran that risk of a lower high failure here in that chart, and having a consecutive lower high failure here, but nope, we pushed this right back up, and notice this trend. We found that trend, pushed right back up through that resistance in the chart. So now look for that little resting pullback, that little consolidating pullback, and then look for your next opportunity to the upside there in Costco if that continues to hold. So with that, everyone, hey, there's a few stocks for you to look at. I hope you have a fantastic day in your trading. Remember, be a little bit careful with over trading as we wait for that big number coming out Friday before the bell. There won't be much we can do about it. All we can do is just write it out, no matter what it says coming out prior to market open. So be kind of careful. I want to wish you all the very, very best. Thank you so much for being here and listening and participating with the channel. Truly, truly appreciate it. And I will see you right back here bright and early Thursday morning. Have an awesome day, everyone.